So I remember Willie Mason from Australia. You probably know where this is going. And I'm like, I'm sure Jamie Peacock flatlined him and he got stretchered off, right, on oxygen. But, the mind carries on and then the old stories. You didn't flatline him and got carried off. But the Great Britain-Australia matches and that one moment where, who did he punch?
Punched Stuart Fielding.
So Stuart Fielding, like Judiced him, right?
Yeah.
And then you've flown in and you've clocked him. He claims he might have slipped. I don't know what he says about it. And you've dropped one of the hardest mother effers in the game. Like that was when you look at ice hockey back in the day and they had the goons scrapping. Yeah. That is when, and I don't condone that now because we know that stuff like that ain't good for you, right?
Yeah.
But that is when league was at its pomp, right? Great Britain, travelling to Australia, the best of the best, and the fans were dictating it because everyone wanted a piece of it.
Yeah, you're right. You've nailed it there. I think, if you'd go, mid-2000s, we're probably riding the wave as well of sports science, so you're physical and athletically we're in our prime. You've gone from that part-time 10 years ago to being understood, right? What makes a great athlete and how can we get the best out of our athletes? But you also had that confrontation in there that could get settled. So now, one of the worst looks I think in either code is confrontation that's shirt pulling and that kind of crap and carrying on. Whereas it was more like you straighten out between each other, and then that's the way it is with it. And I think people who followed rugby or people who like those kind of sports like that because it's simplistic in it. You sort it out, and then we just get on with things. But we admire the athleticism and the skill and the flair that you've got as well. But it's got that edge around it too, as well with it. I would have said, it's a good point. Saying that, I mean, I keep coming back. I just think that I think we'll see the best of that with Rugby League, with the Ashes series back here, but we won't have that kind of confrontation in it. We'll have a lot of shirt pulling, won't we, and people pulling people around.
Yeah, you still have the big shots, though, and they still go high. I know that they're trying to mitigate that and they're trying to go lower.
Yeah.
Union, it's been back and forth. Well, not back and forth. It's been trying to lower the tackle height, and they've had loads of issues with red cards and people being sent off and sin bin and a little bit of confusion. But I get it, and I'm for it as well. They ain't going lower in league, are they? They're not refusing to do it, or how are they dealing with that?
Well, they were doing it, and then they was getting the same as Union, where probably too many players were getting, sin bin and red card, and they seem to have been a bit more lenient around it now as tackles going over the shoulder within the game. But then after the game, I feel like the bans are pretty substantial, and maybe that's a bit of a way to run with it a little bit, that you have the substantial bans afterwards. With it, I do think there is a bit of, with Rugby League as a professional, you sign a contract, you know what you're getting involved in, right? So, and I think it's great that all the protocols are in place. And one of the big ones I'm a fan of is making sure people spend time out of the game after they've been concussed, because that was never a thing for us, was it? You can play next week, right? I can remember some weeks not being able to text properly on my phone, and then you're playing the following. I couldn't remember how to text, and then you're playing the following week. I think that's the dangerous side of it, which they've got out of the game. Those repeated ones. I think Shantae Happy really suffered.
Yeah, I played with Shantae in Montpellier.
Yeah. I mean, what a tough player he was, but he was getting dropped all the time, wasn't he? And I think
by being hit with a bag.
Yeah.
So we were in training, Jamie, and someone tapped him with a bag.
Yeah.
And he got knocked out, and Fabien Gaultier was shouting at him because he thought he was joking.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so that I think is a really important side of it, that we look after players after they've had a concussion and make sure they don't get those repeated ones. But I think as well, as a rugby player, you need to take some responsibility that you are getting paid to play a violent sport, and if you play a violent sport over a long time, that there may be some repercussions long term for it. But let's do as much as we can to mitigate it without taking away from the spectacle of the sport with it.
Well, that is, whether people like this or not, and I speak about this all the time, that is why a lot of people, I know this, right, and people will disagree, but I know that this is right. People are drawn to these sports for them reasons, right? Because you have 16, 17, 18 stone men, and you have a few, the late, great Rob Burrow, you're looking at Cheslin Colby, and you have these kind of outliers, these smaller, who can hold their own against these, like, giant men. But to the core of it, and you said it there, was the violence and the chaos and the fact that 99.9% of people can't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
They cannot do that. So when they see a big hit, or they see you running the ball back at literally as fast as you can go and not even looking for space, you're looking for another human being. That's what it is, that contest there, because they can't do that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And it is that, just that physical confrontation of both codes that brings in not only the diehard fan, but the casual one as well. When you put together a highlights reel in probably both codes, you put together a lot of their big hits, don't you? Because that's what draws people in. I mean, that's one of the things. You take someone to a rugby league game for the first time in person, and when they hear that, like bone, flesh on flesh, like you get used to it. You don't, when we're playing, you don't think about it, do you? But when I hear it now, you're like, oh yeah, that's quite hard. That.
Yeah, and it comes to the point of this confusion around masculinity. And I don't put myself out there because I'm worried as a 42-year-old man with tattoos who used to fight and do all of these things and play in the sport. And we talk about violence. Is that there's a confusion about, like, what does that masculinity mean? So if you're playing in that sport, then you're perceived as an alpha. And I'm not saying people see it as toxic, but they see it as a negative somewhat. So if I was to pass an opinion on other sports or women's rugby or whatever it is, it has to be I have to be very careful about how I have conversations and speak about. And there is that confusion because of, you're sat here, your fingers are butchered, like you're a big man, your nose is across your face, you're a tough northerner, of how to contextualize other things, right? But you're a father, I'm a father, I'm thinking about my feelings, my emotions, but almost before, it's coming out more now. I'm probably not asking a question, I'm just thinking out loud about being in a sport like that is as masculine can be, but it doesn't need just to be that.
No, it doesn't. I think you're talking about you can get prejudice because of who we are and what we've done, right? Because most people will automatically judge you on that appearance of, oh, you played rugby. That's how you played rugby. Watching what I did, so your opinion must be around that alpha male.
You're an animal.
Yeah, you're an animal. Where just most people get to meet me will know I'm quite measured and I think well rounded on what I say, and I think that can be a powerful place, though, right? Because I think to show vulnerability as a person or as a man, I think you have to come from a place of strength to be able to do that, and then showing vulnerability and showing that you care or showing you have empathy or an emotional feeling about something. If it comes from a place of strength or like, I can handle confrontation, I can do that kind of thing, but that's not how I live my life. Do you know, that's a very small part of it. But if you need me to do that, I can do that. But the large percentage of my life is around being a reasonable person, having empathy, understanding people, and being okay with my emotions and feelings with that. And I think that's why we have a role to play, being role models. I think that we can do both ends of it. We can, have that confrontation, play a brutal sport, but then we can do all these other things as well with it alongside it. And
especially now, because we're no longer that version of ourselves.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I try and say. I don't go around punching people.
I see it, alien.
But I wanted to ask you this, right? So because of the way that you played the game, and I think I might know the answer, but I don't know the answer. Like, I speak about training and having to smash myself on the watt bike and do weights and stuff because naturally I'm aggressive and I have these things inside of me. And I know because of life experiences that I've had, emotional awareness and all of these, what I need to do in order to make myself feel regulated.
Okay? Yeah.
I'm not saying if I don't train then I'm going to go around like trying to fight people. That's not what I mean. But you do that. Like, you train like a savage. I'm watching your things. I'm watching the times and the high rocks.
Yeah.
Is that because you're aware of what you would be like if you weren't like that, or is it deeper than that about purpose and everything? Yeah,
it's a good question. I would say it's the combination of both. I feel like you use a great word there. I'm a far better person. So I know I'm a far better person for everyone in my life when I'm doing physical training, because I think I've got an urge to push myself. I think you get conditioned being in professional rugby league for 20 years or professional sport, certainly in rugby, to push yourself to do difficult things time and time again. So when people see us like charge into someone as hard as we possible can, that's not an easy thing to do, right? That's the thing you have to go, right, this is what I'm going to do now, and I'm going to do it for the benefit of the team, and I'm going to try and get one over that person there. That's not a natural thing to do. So that you spend a life leading difficult decisions and trying to push yourself physically. So I need to do that, because otherwise I get a bit angsty and I know I'm not good around it. That's why I find hard taking days off training, because I know I need to, because I'm getting towards 50. But if I have 2 days off, I feel a bit like I've got to do something here. But then I do love the challenge and that lifestyle of it, and just seeing how hard you can push yourself. And maybe one of the reasons for me as well was why I was doing running, but then I thought I knew a guy, Martin, a friend of mine, who's part owner of a CrossFit gym, that I went there when I was playing. It's thought I need to start doing some things that are more challenging for me, and also hanging around with younger people. I want to hang around with people who are in the early 30s, because I think it keeps you alive and it keeps you honest. So I'm always trying to that competitive edge, and I'm not going to catch the best of them in the gym, but they're going to push me really hard, because I am going to try and catch them.